electric shock therapy done?
We use these electrodes. We place them on the patient's head like this, and then by means of this machine, we pass a controlled electric current through the brain, just for a fraction of a second. The patient doesn't feel it.
Electroconvulsive therapy. It's said to be the most feared procedure in the medical world. Archaic torture or miracle cure. Imagine 480 volts of electricity searing through your brain. Not everyone's idea of a therapeutic procedure, so it's no surprise that electroconvulsive therapy, also known as ECT, is as controversial as ever 70 years after it was introduced. 30 years ago, Emma Pierce was institutionalized with severe depression and anxiety disorder. This was her first encounter with ECT.
When professionals say, oh, ECT is a healing measure, maybe they truly believe it is, I don't know, but I can tell you that in the way that it was administered back there in my day, and I can only really talk about my experience, it was 9 times out of 10 a punishment. You got ECT as a punishment.
You would think Emma was among the last to ever go through this procedure, but it's still widely used today. Films like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest largely discredited the practice, so it may be surprising to many that in the last financial year alone, more than 20,000 procedures were done across the nation, double the figures a decade ago. But long gone are the days of wild physical convulsions. Psychiatrist Bill Linden has used ECT throughout his career and now trains others in how to administer it.
It's a treatment that requires the application of a small electrical stimulus to the head, usually on one side of the head, but sometimes on both sides of the head. And the effect of that is to produce a convulsion. Now, it's the production of the convulsion that seems to be the part of ECT that actually produces its antidepressant effect. The anaesthetic, of course, the patient has a complete full anaesthetic, so they're completely asleep and unaware of what's happening. One of the effects of the anaesthetic is to relax all of the bodily muscles, so that although the brain has a convulsion, the body doesn't. So when someone has ECT, they don't have to be held down or strapped or restrained in any way. They're just lying very comfortably and quietly, and it's very dignified. But the brain has a seizure, and we monitor that seizure through the use of an electroencephalogram. So we can know when the seizure begins, when it finishes, and what quality the seizure is, which is quite important.
ECT is most commonly recommended for people with severe depression, mania, and schizophrenia when medication hasn't worked. With 1 in 5 Australians suffering from some form of mental illness annually, it's not surprising that ECT is on the rise. For the first 26 years of Lydia Malone's life, there were no signs of mental illness. But after the birth of her second son, she slipped into a deep depression. Her condition was so severe that her psychiatrist told her that ECT was her only option. After undergoing 6 ECT procedures, she experienced some of the most common side effects, including headaches, sore muscles, and amnesia.
It was quite scary. I think it was pretty scary for my family to watch me go through it. The memory loss was definitely a big one. I had to keep asking my husband. There was basic things that I just didn't know anymore. Like, I think one of the things I remember is coming home for a day from hospital and trying to cook rice for the kids, which I've cooked thousands of times, being, a mum. But I didn't know where to find the rice in my house, and I didn't know how to cook it.
Emma experienced similar side effects, but unlike Lydia, Emma underwent ECT by choice.
I went willingly. I mean, you're so desperate that there's part of me that I thought, look, maybe there's some, I don't know, tangled up wires in my brain, something, and maybe they can just shock them into order or something. But, when you're that desperate, you'll try anything.
Kim Cullen, director of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, is strongly opposed to electroconvulsive therapy. She considers it physical torture and a gross violation of human rights.
basically, for a vulnerable person, giving them ECT is like putting a sledgehammer to their head, like, boom, knock them out, I mean, we tell our kids not to put our fingers in power sockets, and psychiatrists are expecting us to put our heads in one.
But for Dr. Linden, people like Kim Cullen are misinformed about ECT.
Those groups, I think, do more harm than good. They have their strong beliefs and they're entitled to their beliefs, but I don't think they're entitled to frighten people with beliefs that are not based on good science.
Lydia Malone was fully informed of the procedure, yet was still surprised by its impact on her life.
If I knew what would happen to me, I would definitely have not agreed to it. I've heard of people and met people in the hospital who their life has changed amazingly from it. So, they're just different people and haven't had to, take medication for years and stuff. And some of them have relapsed after a couple of years and needed a top up of ECT. So it's sort of hard to say what it's going to do to you, but for me, if I had have known what it was going to do to my life, I definitely wouldn't have agreed to it, and personally, I wouldn't recommend the treatment to anybody.
During the therapy, there were signs of improvement. However, 3 weeks after her last session, she regressed into an even deeper depressive state.
When I got home, I started to get going downhill again, and really didn't have that much of any really good periods or anything, and became suicidal again, and for the first time in my life, overdosed.
It's these personal stories that have created stigmas about ECT. Stigmas that psychiatrists like Bill Linden want to dismiss.
If you just close your eyes and imagine what it's like, that gives you the answer. Nobody likes the idea of having an electrical impulse put on their head. Nobody likes the idea of their brain being mucked around with. Really, that's what it's about. It still is the most effective treatment we have for depression, for severe depression. It beats medication hands down. With someone who has a serious depression, particularly if they have those psychotic features, the cure rate is of the order of 90%.
Although ECT has an undeniable effect on the brain, the differences between treatment reactions vary greatly and are a concern to human rights groups who believe that only one course of action should be taken.
Man, it should be banned. It just should be banned. What's happening is that, thousands of people are being given ECT every day in Australia. And, not just, one shock, but a series of shocks. And psychiatrists state they don't know how it works. They've got no idea.
As for Lydia, she is feeling better thanks to new medication.
I've been out of hospital for about 3 weeks now, and for the first time in about a year I've been interacting with my kids and playing games with them and doing things that I enjoy again.
For people considering ECT, Lydia has this advice.
I don't know. Just be careful. Just do whatever you can to, if you've got something like depression or whatever, try exercising, try the tablets, try whatever, and give it a really good shot before you give up.